Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining this digital ship media webinar that is being presented by GTT Marine. We're having a fascinating and very important discussion this afternoon. Does the future belong to a single integrated platform or to best of breed systems when it comes to maritime IT that are connected through a common digital foundation? That is quite a big topic. We've got an hour to unpick it, and I'm delighted to be joined by my friends Peter and Casper to get into the detail on it, and of course to be joined by you. So before we start going into our discussion, I just want to flag that at the very bottom of your Zoom screen here, there is a little Q&A function. If you click that, you can type in a question that will pop up to myself, Peter and Casper. We've got dedicated time at the end of today's session to go through your questions. And what always happens on these sessions is we get very few questions at the beginning and then far too many questions at the end to be able to answer them properly. So if you think of something, a comment, a question, something you'd like to contribute to the discussion, then just pop it straight into the Q&A box. And I promise we will get to it towards the end of the session. Without any further ado, though, what I'd like to do is introduce our panel. But Peter, let's start with you. Could you perhaps just give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and your background and sort of how you've ended up in front of us today?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Nick and Casper, for the opportunity to join you both. It's a great forum and an interesting topic. My name's Peter Hadjibateris, and I work for Dorian LPG. I'm our Chief Information Sustainability Officer, which basically means I wear two hats. One on the sustainability side, working with our fleet performance teams and head of energy transition on retrofits and decarbonization initiatives, and then the other one on the IT side, leading our IT transition towards AI and more digital systems. My background, I've been with Dorian for most of my career through our IPO and then various roles around decarbonization and performance. So I've always had a pulse on software and enterprise software, performance software, routing software, and more recently have taken kind of a lead role in selecting our softwares, and happy to talk about what we're doing at Dorian and what we've seen in the marketplace. Thanks, Nick.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining. And Casper, same sort of question. Could you just give everyone here a bit of a background as to who you are?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm Casper. I'm the CEO of GTT Marine. For those of you who are not yet aware what GTT Marine is, then it's actually a new name for the combined four businesses: Vessel Performance Solution out of Denmark, Ascens Morocco out of France and Singapore, and Danelec, the latest acquisition that GTT did summer last year. So June this year, we went live with our new name and our vision for what we would like to do with the combination of the four businesses. Right at a very, very important and interesting time of where we are in the maritime industry. My background has been in the maritime industry for actually 27 years. Been involved in radio and satellite communication for the better part of close to 20 years. And the last 7 years, I've been heading up Danelec, now GTT Marine, with a very strong focus on both hardware and software. Safety is close to our DNA, but also looking at what we can do with our capabilities around data collection and our performance solutions. So very happy to be part of this webinar today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Casper. I'm looking forward to diving into if anyone has an opinion on the question of integration with the journey that you've been on, I think it probably would be you. But maybe the best place to start, if I may, is with Peter. Peter, you described an IT transition that you've been leading. Could you perhaps just give us a kind of potted history of what the last 10 years or so have looked like, and what does the kind of IT platform within Dorian look like today?
Yeah, of course. So Dorian LPG, we're one of the largest VLGC owning and operating companies. We're publicly listed in the New York Stock Exchange, but we haven't always been as big as we are. We had quite a big expansion in 2015. We did 19 new buildings. So we grew our fleet from 3 to 21 or 22 basically overnight within a year. So we had to really expand our systems and resources, shoreside and shipside. And we had relatively modern ships, but they weren't as well connected as everybody hopes they are out of the box. So we had to do some work around that. We operate gas ships, so we've always been following GTT on the tank side, and we're quite keen to see them get into the software space. But to go back a little bit for further in time, around 2015. 16, we were looking for the best of breed performance system. We kind of did a market scan and shortlisted a couple out there. Trace Solutions, I think Kima and VPS. After trialing them for about a year or two, each of them, we selected VPS, and we've been very, very happy with VPS. It was a small team to begin with, but naval architects and engineers, and they had the right approach. They were striving to have the best architecture without over designing the UI, and this was really important to us because we had seen a lot of good-looking UIs with bad digital twins, bad vessel models, which create a lack of trust, and then really hampers the efficacy of the tool. So we had been through that, I think, in 16 and through a little bit into 17, and then selected VPS, and we've been very, very happy with them for the past 8 years or so. On the sensor side, it's been a bit more of a journey. We've tried to consolidate into one provider, a big provider, and we weren't too happy with their interface solution. So then we decided to collate all the sensor data into our own data lake, and from there feed the data to our systems independently, VPS being one of them, and feed the individual tags that we needed for each graph series, or the most important ones that we needed. So that was another journey that took a year or so. And yeah, here we are. I think in 2021 or 2, we finally felt that we were at a steady place, at least on the performance side. We also selected a very good routing partner, So Far Ocean, which is a third party. And so, yeah, we kind of went the best of breed approach because we had newer ships and we had the capability to pull the sensor data and the noon data into a data lake. And I think we'll get to this, Nick, but I think we're in a bit of a new era, right? Where we have these capabilities. We have Starlink. We can do these things at a fraction of the cost that we could 10 years ago. And that's empowered the owners, I think, to demand more flexibility out of their systems. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I think the perfect solution would be a fully integrated solution, but I don't think we've ever seen that work for more than a year, because things change, right? There's a new regulation, there's a new commercial requirement, and then the customizations you've done for that company have to be revamped for everyone, and it falls behind. So I think we are in a new era, and a single solution would be great, but I don't see it working quite yet. So yeah, we'll get into that later.
I think you've in going through that journey actually perfectly articulated what I think a lot of the issues are that exist across the industry, and that the idea of kind of shooting for the perfect single platform being a nice thing to look at, and then the reality of trying to make that work, and then experimenting, failing, experimenting, and looking at new options. But I kind of split your answer really into 3 things. One is actually the data on the vessel and the quality of the data, how that data is processed when it's ashore, and then how it gets presented to people who are trying to make decisions. And I thought you had some fascinating points about over-designing UI and maybe under-designing the data collection piece. So Casper, it'd be good to bring you in on exactly that point. If you take those three areas, what does sort of good look like from your perspective?
Well, for me, obviously, it's not a surprise, but I'm a strong believer, and it starts with quality data that are collected in a very efficient manner on board a vessel. The industry has been used to a standard around new reports that has delivered a lot of good data points, but also 1, 2, maybe 3 points a day. And if you want to build a digital infrastructure where you also want to use sensor data for condition-based maintenance, or maybe take that to the extreme, use AI models to guide you on how to operate the vessel or some of the assets on board the vessel, you need higher granularity of data, and you need quality data. So for us, it takes an offset in quality data, which can be either new report or high frequency data directly from a sensor. It's always been important for us that the job we do on board the vessel is also visible for the crew on board the vessel. They need to be still responsible for driving the vessel and not just hand data onto performance teams on shore, but they need to be able to get proper guidance. So visibility of the data that we collect, not in a shape and form where it's fragmented mega by mega, but in an easy to understand infrastructure. And then data needs to be transported. And when you offload an awful lot of data from ship to shore, there are two things you need to be aware of. Peter already alluded to LEO satellites with the likes of Starlink and Elon Musk. That has been a tremendous support in what we would like to do and what the owners would like to do. I come from a background where I started up my journey in the maritime industry promoting 2.4 kilobit satellite terminals. Thank God that is 27 years ago, but still, it tells a bit of where we were and now where we are. So when data is being offloaded from the vessel, it needs to be targeted what you need to use. So it needs to be both the right set of data that are being transported, but it also needs to be cyber secure. And then when data hits the clouds, then you can basically do whatever you would like to do. There are a ton of software companies that are operating in that space. Peter has had the luxury to test a few, but it's only a few out of the many software companies that are fighting for a play in the software field. So I think the right way to look at this is definitely in the three pockets, but one will not necessarily exclude the others. I think it's a value chain that actually are moving more and more together, and the level of data ingestion from different sources and data sharing is only what we have seen in the early part of where we are and where we need to be.
So it's the right data, quality data collected efficiently and cyber secure, which I can see that makes a huge amount of sense. Peter, you've been on that journey, kind of doing this in both a new build fleet and an older fleet. I'm just curious, what's the difference between sort of working with older vessels and newer vessels when it comes to actually getting set up for this kind of journey?
I think that it's not as dramatic as it might feel at first.
Right.
Mainly because a lot of the modern systems that you might get with a new building ship aren't as open as one would hope. So it might be easier to purchase an autologger from Danelec and throw it onto an older ship than it is to get access to the Modbus on a newer ship. I hate to say that, but unfortunately, that's a reality. And I think Casper and Danelec they really took the lead in establishing that autologging and data access should be accessible to the owner, free to be owned by the owner, and I think others are following suit now, but it took time, and that's a really important principle to us, and I think to most owners is having some ownership to that data, and having the flexibility to use it and direct it at your will.
Yeah, I think that's something, Casper, you and I have spoken about many times in the past, that you're very clear on data is owned by the ship owner. Is that right?
Yes, yes. And I mean, obviously, if the owner is ready to share some of the data points with other makers or other software companies, I mean, it's their decision. So clearly, what data we collect are data that belongs to the owner, which is also why it sometimes is a bit of a surprise that it's cumbersome to get access to data from AMS systems or other crucial systems if you want to do sophisticated performance analytics. That has been troublesome in the past, and we have not overcome that fully yet. I think some of that also boils down to the business mindset in the maritime industry. I think we have come a long way on the digitalization journey. I think there are still some silos that we need to take apart in order to take the next couple of steps we need to take.
Yeah, I think on that, I think there's still a perception that the industry is behind on digitalization. And I think maybe 5 years ago that was absolutely the case. But I think these days I would argue that because of Leo and everything that's happened in the SATCOM space, I actually think that the maritime industry is sort of, certainly getting up there to other industrial markets.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of investment going into digitalization in the maritime industry. The last 5 years, it's been a tremendous development, and I think you also moderated a webinar. I think it was April timeframe.
Yes, yeah.
Where we also had the luxury of having other ship owners taking part of that webinar, and one of the ship owners in the webinar actually said it's not a matter of access to data. Now we have a load of data. Yes, there can be some fine tunings on the quality side, but all that data is now being transferred into dashboards. So we are basically drowning in dashboards. So I think that pretty much says it all. That now you are in a situation where there's an awful lot of data that are being offloaded, thanks to more capacity on satellite. Not the same expense when you compare to 10 years ago. And then you are basically moving some of the issues that you had in the past into some new areas you need to solve. I mean, 20 different dashboards is probably not the solution to an operator. So you need to again to select the right set of data and present that in an orderly fashion.
Peter, what's your take on that? Because you've obviously gone down the journey of building a data lake to be able to sort of warehouse all your data. In theory, you could take any data stream, dashboard it anywhere, send it into any system. But the people on the end of the dashboards are the ones who've got to make the decisions. And there's I guess a certain question of kind of choosing what to do and what not to do. So how do you handle that internally at Dorian?
Yeah, we're handling it. It's the balls are in the air at the moment, so I'll answer it the best I can. But I think what's important is to simplify the dashboards as much as possible, do some user training. But what we're seeing is that we want the AI to be integrated into the work processes. So if it's routing AI, you want it right there on the platform. You want the recommendations to be part of it. You don't want a separate analysis outside, using the data set separately. The same for procurement and ERPs and crewing. You want these insights brought back into the actual work process and back into the ERP or back into the software that you're using. So that's something we're working on with some new partners. Yeah, but I have to credit Casper, because I think going back to kind of the industry shift in the past, a lot of companies, especially on the sensor data and performance side, they kind of had this mindset of capturing the customer, and it's a long-term thing. All right, we've put in all this infrastructure, they're not going to move. It's $50,000 of sensors, so we're going to charge for everything we can. I think that's shifting, and I credit Casper and GTT with helping with that transition, because we've always wanted companies with this open approach and more competitive mindset. So I'm really pleased to see the industry shifting more towards a competitive race mentality rather than a captive customer one.
Casper, I'd be interested in your take and kind of reasoning for pursuing that strategy. It feels like an obvious question, but I think it's an important one.
Yeah, I mean, we started up at Danelec being, I mean, obviously we have been in the VDR space for 25 years, and not to bore you with the safety part around the VDR, but the capabilities that we actually developed around collecting data that are stored in a VDR for safety operational purposes. That is a capability that we have developed, and we have transferred into a more commercial data collection and also performance-driven agenda. So in the VDR space, we have not had the luxury to say no to a sensor in operating with Modbus or OPC UA or whatever protocol they are using. So a lot of the stuff that we have been working with for a number of years, actually, we realized that they were also catering for the more mass data collection part of the industry. And then that DNA has been transferred into Agnostic by design. So when you are operating in a VDR space, you don't look at whether the output comes from manufacturer A, B, C, D. You need to be able to collect the data. So it's a capability that we have built for many years, and then we realized that in the maritime industry it has been a race also to be able to collect the right amount of data. And when we started up the journey, the natural response for all OEMs and all manufacturers in the maritime industry, even some of the software companies, in order for them to get quality data and maybe high frequency data lifted from the vessel, they required a box. And then we came to the conclusion that who is actually going to earn the way through, if you are an owner or an operator, to pay 30 different companies to create a box and create an infrastructure on board a vessel that are running basically in 30-fold. So the DNA was basically, let's try to see if we can build a solution and a value proposition of being agnostic in the data collection on board, and then basically moved the same mentality into when data hit the cloud. So fully agnostic by design, and built on the capabilities that we have had for 25 years in the VDR space.
It's interesting to hear that kind of agnostic by design approach, and I can see how that allows you to near enough sit anywhere in the value chain, from the vessel all the way through to kind of end dashboards. But Peter, you made a deliberate decision to go from trying to have a kind of an integrated platform to building a data lake dedicated to then pulling data into other applications. My kind of question off the back of that is what went into that decision, and where in your mind should the kind of integration layer sit for a shipping company? Because you can do a data lake, you can do APIs between applications, you can go for a single platform. So how did you end up at the approach you ended up at?
Yeah, I think we had to come to terms with the fact that we were trying to do things that were more difficult and outside of the capabilities of a single provider. And I think that's only increasing as we try and do more with AI and predictive maintenance. I mean, I think it would be silly to do predictive maintenance on your own, completely independent of the engine manufacturer's data and things like that. So we saw that we needed data from certain systems to give to other systems and all that. So we started our data lake quite early in 17 or 18, but we've had to revamp it in the past year because we needed to restructure the data to make it more accessible, basically, and easy to grab. But sorry, and one more thing I wanted to add to that is I do think it's very important to have visibility on board, and as much flexibility as you can on board. one of the issues we have, even with the data lake, is redistributing noon reports from the ship. So having more capabilities on board is also a very powerful thing to do. So I think you want as much flexibility in the data that you can source and send from the ship, on the ship, and then as much data as you can collect and as easily accessible in the data lake. And that gives you the most flexibility to feed into various systems or one system if you can find one.
It always blows my mind how intractable the noon report problem is. And it seems no matter what we do, we can never quite crack it as an industry.
Well, I think Casper can answer this a lot better than I can, but relying entirely on the sensor data still isn't really possible because it's difficult to average out for the day. Do you take quiet periods? Do you take aggregates from certain periods? What do you do? So until we crack that, there's certain data points that have to be manually collected, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone is arguing that the new report is going to fully disappear. I think there's a lot of good development also on making the quality of the new report better and higher. And on board, there are actually a lot of data points that can be auto-logged from sensors, and then you need to fill in the last amount of manual inputted data. So I think it is a matter of those you could say high frequency data and new report low speed data will remain in parallel for a number of years. And I agree with you, Peter, that we are not 100% done with quality stamping and proof stamping all the sensor data, but there's been a lot of work, not just by Daniel and GTT Marine, but also some of our colleagues in the industry that are actually doing heavy lifting on moving some of the obstacles and the fuss around whether you can trust the high frequency sensor data in a cloud construct. So we can build a lot of monitoring and a lot of quality stamping, both on board the vessel as well as in the clouds. So I think we have seen a tremendous development, but we still have some work to do in certain areas.
Yeah, and I don't think that a ship owner operator wants to go down the journey of trying to normalize sensor data on their own. We were quite involved, or we stayed close to VPS when they were doing that. And it was a very academic exercise and not an easy one. So I wouldn't want to replicate it on my own.
Exactly.
I think that actually raises quite an interesting question around the role of software vendors, platform vendors, when it comes to being able to aggregate data and feed it into, whether we'll come on to AI in a moment, whether it's AI models or just whether it's models for things like performance curves and all of that sort of stuff. I guess again that comes down to that question of data ownership. But my sort of personal view on data ownership is yes, it does sit with the ship owner, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's valuable when it only sits with the ship owner. I think you start to build real value when you're able to share, data. You have a mechanism to share data kind of far and wide with other stakeholders. And I can see you nodding, Casper, which I assume means you agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think the maritime industry can learn a lot from other industries where benchmarking has been the norm. I think owners and operators are doing benchmarking among their own fleets, but I think there's much more to be gained if we down the line start to do benchmarking outside fleets. I mean, that is not the same as an owner and operator should disclose valuable information. I mean, it's more a matter of how is the vessel. I mean, you take 20 new builds from the same build at Hyundai. Maybe there are some learning 5-10 years down the line on how those vessels been operated that can also be attractive and valuable data that can be shared when we start to be a bit more open and benchmark oriented in that sense. we're not there yet. You can do it among an owner and operator within their own fleet and with their own hands, but I think there's more to be gained from that.
Yeah, I also see a lot of potential there. Anonymized data sharing, incident sharing. I don't want to get too far away from our core topic, but we're recently selected Jibe as our ERP mainly because they have an AI layer on top called Yamba, which the idea is will anonymize various customer data so that if you have sister ships amongst different owners, you can learn from each other. And I think that that's kind of the future, right? If we're trying to do preventative maintenance with our 21 owned ships, it's going to take us, 3 to 10x longer than if we're trying to do it with 200, 300 sister ships.
Yeah, I think that point on interoperability, people often just assume that about software interoperability, but I think specific to the shipping industry, you have a fleet will not just, it's not a static thing. It doesn't stay still for very long. You can have ships being chartered in, ships being chartered out, coming under management, out of management. Actually, so the ability of software to be able to move fleets in and out, I think is super important, but often I think sort of rarely gets talked about in forums like this.
Yeah, that is a very important function.
Just on that, interoperability versus kind of functionality in general. We're a very small business. We're a very uncomplex business, and we have a piece of software internally that we keep renewing on, purely because when we look at exactly what it integrates into and how complicated it gets when you start to look at which bits of software are going to start to fall over when you pull one brick out, we just leave it every year. And so we were best of breed probably 5 years ago. We're now not. But we don't necessarily want to go on the journey of trying to unpick it all. When you go down this sort of best of breed approach, how do you actually kind of make the decision of when to swap a piece of software out and making sure that you don't break everything else in another part of the IT estate?
That's a very good question. I think it all goes back to the data lake, and that's the thing that's empowering owners now to have more flexibility. I think in the past, everybody has felt that to some extent, whether it be a data source that you're relying on or a simple functionality. And that still kind of plagues the industry a little bit, but it's moving in the right direction. I'm encouraged. But yeah, there's no easy answer there. I think you just have to balance the risk, and it's a reality of our business. It's a very fast-moving, operationally intense business. Nobody likes to change the way they work just because it's so fast paced, even though, we all want to. I think when it comes down to doing it, it's like, we have to change this process. It's a pain and all that. So it has to be done carefully in a balanced manner, and you need the buy-in of everybody. So that's where I think selecting best of breed it's a lot easier to get buy-in from everyone.
But it's as I see it, it's not black and white. I mean, you can still have some sort of best of breed on top of an integrated platform, and that again helps on the data integration. You can do API to different solutions in the event that you don't want to have everything from one vendor. I mean, we are clearly at the GTT Marine in a position where we can provide a lot of solutions to our customers, but we also know that we are not the only company in the world and cannot necessarily deliver all aspects that Peter would expect from a vendor. But we can help on the data parts, and we can do APIs. I mean, I'm amazed of the progress that Peter and Dorian has made on the data lake side, but that's a bit back to what I also described on data collection. Instead of having 20 or 30 different boxes on board a vessel, could be standardized on fewer integrated platforms and then open up APIs. Dorian and Peter, they are very knowledgeable and very skilled, but not all shipping companies do have the same capabilities. So maybe this integrated platform combined with APIs to provide the at least the choice of the customer can help further on the ultimate journey, which is we want and need to be carbon neutral in 2050. And no single company can do that on its own. It requires integration, it requires partnership and collaboration. And that is the heavy lifting in the maritime industry that has been conservative, although moving fast the last 4, 5, maybe 6 years. But we still have some silos and I would call business paradigms we need to break down. We need to do some proper business model innovation in order to make sure everyone get a skin in the game and not just hand everything into one single company. So I think I'm, as I said, very pleased with the progress and amazed with the progress Peter have made. But not all companies are able to do it. So looking at this integrated platform instead of one platform being able to give all solutions to the customer, I think that is what we, at least at GTT, would like to we would like to further develop on.
Yeah, that makes huge amount of sense. And on the subject of further development, we've sort of talked around AI a little bit. It's come up a couple of times in the conversation so far. I can see it comes up quite a lot in the audience Q&A. So let's get out in front of that and ask it now. Kasper, let's start with GTT Marine. Like, what's the kind of general approach to AI? Where are you seeing it making sense for GTT? And where do you see it delivering the most value for your end customers?
I think it's a fair and super relevant question. I think it plays a role in different aspects of the value chain. I think one of the obstacles that some owners and also we experience from time to time is onboarding vessels with high frequency sensors. I think AI can certainly help on the onboarding part. It can help on the quality assessment and quality check of sensor data. It can also help if and when we get to a high degree of benchmarking. It can most certainly also help on voyage planning and voyage optimization. So I think there's a lot of buckets where we can see AI potentially can help. But I will always come back to if you start up a big AI engine and a big AI model, you also need data. And building an AI model on a single data feed from a vessel based on a new report, I would then expect that model is not operational fast. And that is, again, where high-frequency data and quality data come in as a strong lever for utilizing the effect of AI. I don't think anyone have seen the actual silver bullet on where AI is going to make a tremendous difference. We are trialing, we are testing in different areas, and I'm not in doubt that it will play a role in both in the way that we develop our products and the way we serve our customers and our clients. For me, it's a matter of embracing the technology. I was at the SMM exactly 2 years ago, and I was speaking at our customer event, and there was a lot of, I would say, hesitance around AI and what that potentially could do to the business. I think the ones who are closing their eyes, they will probably realize that the train is leaving. So we need to embrace the technology, but you need to do it cautiously, and you need to make sure that whatever decision you take is also backed in a proper security setting.
Yeah, I think the infrastructure for how AI gets set up, when you consider security and the sort of dangers of things like prompt injection, I think that's we get very taken up with the hype, and I think often forget to look at that seriously, unless of course you're in Peter's job, and I imagine he does look at that. So Peter, same kind of question. What's the kind of philosophy for AI in Dorian, and where are you seeing it start to drive value, if anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I think as Kasper mentioned, it's touching a lot of areas, if not every area. The sensor quality, I think performance has been the first to embrace it, really. I think it's essential for sensor data quality normalization and scanning. It's essential for cyber. Obviously, we've been using ML algorithms for years now, and those are going to get more advanced. And I kind of see it as the only saving grace from all these very scary ransomware patch attacks and all that that's coming. So it's essential there. But I think as far as being beneficial to owners, operators, like I said, the routing has been the first to embrace it. Digital twins with simple machine learning algorithms, informing routing algorithms, and then vice versa, the weather effect reinforming the digital twins. That has been worked on for almost 10 years now, and is at a pretty good place, and something we're leveraging a lot, and something we've seen 8 to 10% savings from when utilized really effectively. And then on the more operational side, I think it's starting to drip into ship management. We see a lot of value, probably the most value, in predictive maintenance, but that's going to take more time. Again, something that everyone was dreaming about in 2012, 15, and it's taken a lot of time and hasn't moved as quickly as we had hoped. But I think there's a lot of potential there, both on the kind of engine side, engine manufacturer side, but also, as we said, on the anonymized data sharing side, sort of more organic predictive maintenance and using thermal and vibration sensors to inform that also. So I think that's probably the highest single savings number, but then there's also a lot we can do with crew and procurement, again, in the ERP, and kind of we're starting to look at our ERP more as a work tool and a time reduction tool rather than just a record keeping tool from the ship to shore. So that's a dramatic shift, and we're excited for that. Predictive maintenance.
Ever heard anyone describe their ERP as a time reduction tool?
I hope I'm not being overzealous, but I think that's our hope, right? Is that we reintegrate AI functionalities and insights into the actual work process, both on the ship and ashore, and we save time for the seafarers and our shoreside teams, and allow them to focus on value-added work.
Wow, that's exciting. We have been absolutely inundated with audience questions. So I'm going to cut just a little early to the audience questions because there are so many of them. So I will ask you, gents, to try and keep your answers brief. Although some of these questions could have an entire webinar in their own right to discuss them. Let me start with Casper. I'll send this one to you. What are your thoughts about the lack of nomenclature standardization of data points? The same sensors can have a few name combinations depending on how the integrator is configured by individual brands. I can imagine, and Peter's nodding, so I imagine this is quite a big headache.
Even by the same brand sometimes.
No, that is basically heading spot on. I mean, there's a massive task in aligning that. To some extent, I think if AI is used properly, that is also one of the areas where that potentially can help. But I think lack of standardization on that part, that is giving us some headache when onboarding vessels. So there's heavy lifting in front of us on trying to standardize on some of that. Some of the class societies are also working on that, and we are taking part of some of those forums as well. But it's not easy, especially if you come across a fleet that has a age range from 1 year to a 30 year. Difficult task, but something we need to work together on and try to overcome.
And Peter, I'd just be curious, how do you approach that within Dorian if you've got even within a single supplier that issue coming up?
Yeah, I think we've just learned the hard way that you have to really, really double check, even if they say they're all going to be consistent. If you're going with a single provider, that's great, and just make sure that all the tags are the same, labeled the same way. And if you're going for multiple providers, you just have to manually check. I don't think there's any way around it.
There's something
put the onus on them, right? Make sure you don't fully pay until they've cleaned up the sensor tags.
I think that's very wise advice. Slightly different area, but something we did internally at Thetis with our own kind of market definitions was eventually we had to recognize that we're not going to have the same definitions as everyone else. But we decided on what those definitions are internally, and then we stick to that very rigidly. And if other people want to map to that, then that's up to them. But we keep a very clear view internally on kind of what data means internally for us. Peter, I'll send this to you. Curious to understand, what are the key attributes you look for when piloting a new solution provider? I guess if you're going to be best in breed, that means you've got to do quite a lot of tests. And you mentioned you piloted 4 or 5 different solutions in the course of a year. How do you choose what to pilot? How do you run the pilots? And then how do you choose the eventual winner?
Yeah, go to Thetis and ask them what they think is the top 3 and do a trial with those 3.
I'll going to click that one for marketing.
Yeah, no, all jokes aside, we went to, a third party and we scanned the market, got 8 to 10, I think 8 companies out there that were top, and then shortlisted 3 of those 8 by doing process mapping exercise and functionality mapping exercise, and surveying the people who had looked at each one. And then we shortlisted 3 and did extensive 2-week presentations with those 3. And I think ultimately ERP is tough to trial, right? But other softwares you could trial too and then select.
Yeah, and if you've got a fleet, I guess a mixed fleet, or it is possible if you do performance solutions and things, it is possible to run pilots across the fleet.
Yeah, 3 here, 3 here. But all jokes aside, I think it would save people a lot of time to go to you first.
I'll take that. Casper, I'll send one to you. Coming back to AI, how about on the AI side? The owner's own AI with one interface, or several vendor AIs, each with their own interface. What's your view on kind of how to structure the AI setup in an organization?
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one. I think, and maybe that's not answering to the full extent, but I think one of the ways to look at this could be to on the integrated platform, instead of just providing data on a dashboard, you actually provide some sort of AI skin where the owners or the operators can use that skin as part of the integrated platform and get the dashboards and the data sets that they would like. Then they would basically piggyback on the AI enterprise setup that we would have on as an overlay to the solution. This can become very, very technical very quick, and I think I would pause it here. I think it's worth a deep dive in basically any of the cases, but that could be a way also to overcome some of the dashboard drowning that I alluded to earlier. That we basically provide some skinning at our portal. Where the owners and the operators or the performance managers can utilize our platform based on the AI tools that we have.
I think certainly something that a principle that we see as quite interesting and sort of worth considering all of this is to split out the data layer from the presentation layer.
Yeah.
My personal view is, at the moment at least, be very careful about how AI gets used in the data layer, because once you start to bring AI into that kind of single source of truth set of data, it's very difficult to undo stuff. But I think to your point on the presentation there, kind of how you skin stuff, we're almost getting to the point where a dashboard can be a consumable. It can be created in 10 minutes, viewed for 20 minutes, and then binned again, which becomes quite exciting. Every individual user could have, in theory, their own sort of dashboards for what they're trying to measure. Question for you, Peter. what are the key priorities for using the data? Is it vessel performance, asset integrity, reporting, compliance? And then how do you prioritize use cases internally within Dorian? Or is it all of the above?
Yeah, it is all of the above. I mean, I think regulatory compliance and reporting is kind of the base, right? That's a requirement. But we see more and more, especially with the advent of AI, more and more possibilities. That being said, I think you should identify what you have the bandwidth to deal with now. You might not need 300 tags. You probably don't. You might be fine with 50 at first, but you don't want to constrain yourself, right? So connect to Danilec, select the first 50, but have the optionality to go to 200-300 when you need it. What I'm saying is, like, I would focus on the things that save the most money first, right? So if you don't have good digital twins and the best routing algorithm, focus there. Use the data for that. Use the 50 tags for main engine optimization, then move to auxiliaries, then boiler, then whatever else you want, then predictive maintenance. So start with the big ticket items. Focus on like completing that cycle. So getting those tags, making sure the digital twins are set up properly, making sure you're achieving savings in that area, and then move to the next one.
Yeah, and I think if you can establish value from those early use cases, the whole thing starts to pay for itself from a business case point of view.
Exactly. Yeah.
Casper, is my understanding correct that the data collected in GTT is from GTT equipment only, or have you solved the data silo, OEM silo problem? Or is this still an issue that OEMs use different protocols and different standards for data?
We have solved it in many cases. As I said, we are agnostic by design. We do not need to have a Kaima power meter or a Danilec VDR or other Danilec GTT equipment, labeled equipment. So we have an agnostic approach on board the vessel. Some cases, I need to be honest, we cannot solve it alone. We need, in some cases, the owner or the operator to twist the arm of one of the asset providers on board the vessel in order to get a proper output and a proper configuration. But when that is done, we are able to collect data from basically any sensor on board the vessel.
And Peter, what's your take on that? Because I know you have an opinion on it.
Yeah, I think I just want to highlight that it is completely in our rights to push the provider to open up, their system. So it is on the owner, and it does take some pushing and some work, as Casper said. But don't be shy to do that, and here to talk to anybody who wants to about it, because I think it's a really important thing for industry to move towards and a more open mindset when it comes to data. We don't want to re-enter this captive customer phase with even more important AI empowered functions, right? We don't want to become reliant on one company because they're the best at this, at everything in AI. We want to be able to select the best companies, and so empower yourselves, and yeah.
I think it's really good advice, and I think I can tell you from experience that will never happen vendor to vendor. It only ever happens when a customer pushes it. So yeah, you definitely have to kind of ally together to make that sort of thing happen. I think we've got time for one more. Thank you so much to everyone who's asked questions. There's tons of them. Peter, I'll send this one to you. When did a dashboard last change a real decision for you? And what do you wish it had told you sooner?
Yeah, so I think the thing we're looking at most is on our auxiliaries and kind of running time, and dual running and all that. We've got good dashboards for that, but they're retroactive. So we are looking for tools that are catching it sooner and allowing us to intervene sooner. And that also goes. We're also looking for a tool that's on board that will allow the crew to intervene a bit sooner.
Nice. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And Casper, I'll set the same question your way. What was your last dashboard based decision?
That's a good one. It's probably more on the financial operations side, where we are able to obviously both look at the number of hours spent on, for instance, onboarding. That can provide a very valuable information both on crewing and where to focus our staff in the right way. But it's I would say the big dashboards for me are basically they probably belong to the past. I'm more the selective guy now, asking for the data in a different way.
Interesting. That's a great window into how the world of work, I think, is going to change over the next 5-10 years. We are unfortunately rapidly running out of time. We've got about 4 minutes left. What I'd like to do, I can see on the participants that there are quite a few ship owners on the call today. And so what I'd like to do is sort of wrap up with some advice. So anyone who sort of wanting to go on this journey, get a better handle on what I would describe as the kind of IT estate, and they're trying to make the decision between best of breed or going after a single provider or building data lakes, whatever it may be. What advice would you give them on how to approach it? Peter, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I think we all touched on this, but focus on data quality is the most important thing. Don't get wooed by fancy UIs. Make sure the models work in the background, back test things. And yeah, use people like yourself, use Thetius who have the expertise. I mean, you've built a very impressive network and business, and I think it's a niche space. And there's very few people with the oversight that you have, so utilize that. It'll save you a lot of time and heartache at the end and during the implementation phase. So yeah, short and sweet, but that was my advice.
Awesome. Casper?
I think one of the points Peter made earlier, don't necessarily go for 500 or 1,000 tags if you don't need it. So be selective, be clear on what you would like to do, what you would like to solve, and then make sure that you select a solution that is scalable and a solution that is able to grow with you as you mature along the way.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. It falls on me to bring this to some kind of conclusion, and there's been so much in this discussion that I feel like is worthy of mentioning here. But I think to your point, Casper, working backwards from a problem and working backwards from a problem where there is real business value to solve it, I think is a great first step. But with that as the starting point, I think there are three core things to consider. One is data collection. How do you make sure you've got the right data of the right quality and you're collecting it efficiently and doing it securely? Then how do you get it into the organization and stored in the organization and set up in a way that it can actually become useful to the business? And I think, again, sort of coming back to starting from a problem, don't try and boil the ocean, limit the number of tags to what you absolutely need to solve the problem. And only then start to think about UI. And I think often we get that the wrong way around and get quite excited by a really attractive UI and lots of features and functionality. When actually often what you need is something very, very simple to help someone make a slightly better decision in real time. If you can do those things, I think you'll be in a great position. And actually, that's probably agnostic of the particular vendors that you pick to get there as well. Peter, Casper, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today, to have this discussion. Thank you so much to everyone in the audience for listening in, and particular thanks to those of you who asked questions. There are still lots outstanding, and we'll have a read through once we've finished the session, and if we're able to answer any offline, we'll do our very best. And thank you so much to our partners at GTT Marine for actually partnering with us on this and making this whole discussion possible. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful day, and thank you for listening, and see you next time. Thanks all.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Casper.
Thank you, Peter.